I've spent the past few years making this C6 Corvette make nearly 600 horsepower to the rear wheels, and in doing so, I've learned a lot, I've screwed up a lot, and I've spent way too much money. So I'm going to show you guys how to properly build a 500 to 600 horsepower LS2, LS3 setup for these cars. Now, also want to state real quick, I am not an engine builder, I'm not a genius, I don't do this for a living, this is just solid advice from what I have. So I know there's tons of misconception with these cars on doing this, doing that, whatever. I will be the first to tell you right now from what I've learned, don't buy an intake manifold, don't buy a cold air intake at all at first. That intake costs probably $1,100 to $1,300, and a cold air intake would be another $300. So you're talking $1,500 to $1,600 right away, which it would pick up good gains, but it won't pick up great gains until you do the camshaft. And you can't just dive right into a camshaft, obviously, because a lot of guys don't have the $1,200 to $1,500 it takes to buy a full cam kit. But the thing that you need to do right away to these cars is put long tube headers on them and an X-pipe. Long tube header X-pipe setup from Speed Engineering cost me right around $800, and it was a solid increase in power after the tune. It was a night and day difference pickup on this LS2. Now, some people do have different goals, and you might just stop right there at the headers, because that will probably take an LS2 car from 340 wheel all the way to, heck, maybe even 360 wheel. It just depends on how aggressive tuning is and everything, but it will wake this car up and it will just drive you to want more after that. Now, a lot of things that people do next is they buy the cold air intake or the intake manifold, and I'm telling you, before you spend that $1,500, you can get on Brian Tooley Racing, Cam Motion, Texas Speed. You can buy an entire LS2, LS3, even you LS1 and LS6 guys, you can buy an entire cam kit for like $1,000. Now, I know a lot of you are saying, oh, but a cam, it's not the easiest thing to put in. Yeah, but it's way easier than putting cams in a Coyote. At the end of the day, this is a push rod motor. You get all this out of the way while you're down there, put $300 or $400 back, upgrade the crank pulley, make it an ATI balancer ARP crankshaft bolt so you never have to touch it again, and you'll be said and done on ever have to worry about that problem also. If you do any moderate, quote-unquote, stage 2, stage 3, whatever you guys want to consider your camshaft stuff, these cars will pick up. I'm guessing you would see it across the board on almost any LS1, LS2, LS3, 70 to 100 wheel horsepower with a cam, headers, and a tune probably. Now, I know people will argue with me on this, and this is the best, probably one of the best intakes to put on the LS2, but I put this intake on, stock camshaft, no supercharger, and it picked up maybe 5 horsepower through the mid-range. I think I picked up a little bit up top too, but I wasn't pushing enough power to actually lose anything from the stock intake manifold. The big misconception is every mod that you put on, you will gain massive amounts of power. And these cars, for example, probably make between 340, 350 wheel from the factory. That stock LS2 intake wasn't suffocating me yet. I can only move so much air through what the stock camshaft and stock head is designed to flow at. And that is one of the huge misconceptions. So before you spend $1,200 to $1,300 on that, and then, another $200 to $400 on a cold air intake, just take that $1,500, $1,600 and buy your camshaft and buy your balancer, and you're going to pick up probably 75 to 100 horsepower compared to picking up, you probably pick up 5 to 10 at the wheel, maybe another 5 at the wheel. It all depends on tuning and stuff from just doing an intake setup on a stock camshaft car. So let's assume you did go that route. Let's assume that you did headers first, then you did the camshaft. You did your crank while you were in there, and you put the new pulley on, so you don't have to worry about that. You got it back on. Your LS2 car probably breaks over 400 wheel horsepower. Your LS3 car is probably closer to 450 with a stout output that they can have with good tuning. So what would I do next? Well, you have a couple choices. You can port the heads while you're in there and even mill them if you want to stay the NA route, I would say, because if you mill your heads, I would not put a blower on, because you're just upping compression really aggressively and you're asking for problems. But you can either mill your heads, maybe pick up another 20 to 30 horsepower, or you go the blower route, or you go the nitrous route. All right, we can't go that route. This ruins engines. No, I'm kidding. I actually just don't know enough about nitrous on these setups to give you advice on that. Anyway, and if you want to take it to the top notch, ported and milled stock heads will always make crazy power. You can do aftermarket cylinder heads, but once again, before you spend $3,000 on cylinder heads that are 245 cc, 265 cc, you can only flow so much air. So consider that. Consider your camshaft option, how it matches up. You need to talk to somebody that is much more knowledgeable than me, that is an engine builder. I don't comprehend all that to the fullest extent that I could build a crazy high horsepower NA motor in these cars. Now, I will be the first to tell you from my personal experience spending money on these things, it is cheaper to try to find a used blower setup or a used nitrous kit setup, both of which I have laying around, ironically, than it would be to try to do some big motor build in a car like this. To do aftermarket heads, stroker crank pistons, I mean, you're talking $6,000-$7,000 maybe. And I don't know what machine shop work costs if you're wanting to end up boring out your engine, but I've went before in videos. I picked up this blower for $3,000 with injectors. So there's pros and cons. This nitrous kit was $500. The only difference is it's got the wrong throttle body adapter for this, which is another $150. And then I could put a 100 shot directly on this car. And I bought both of these off Facebook. So there is very cheap options to make your 500-600 horsepower range on these cars. Just don't fall into the misconception of buying the cold air intake right away and then the intake manifold. Because I know a lot of people are saying, well, you got to buy it either way, blah, blah, blah. But if you think about it, if you spent that $1,600 and you pick up maybe 20 wheel horsepower, you could spend $1,600 and put a cam in this. It could have been a bone stock LS2 making 340 wheel. It's going to make like 400 wheel, 410 wheel. And then with headers, it's going to make 420, 430 wheel. And it's going to be such a better rate of return for your money. And then once you put the intake manifold on it, now that it's got a decent sized cam and headers, it's going to pick up another 20 wheel. Your gains are going to be so much better across the board if you just do it in this order. But enough of derailing off track. Like I said, you need to go headers, cam, possibly heads if you go that route. Once you've done your camshaft, I would always do head studs, head gaskets regardless. Then you can pick, you know, healthy NA setup, blower, nitrous. You put a turbo, I mean, Sawzall or hole saw, run the exhaust out the hood. I mean, really, I'm just telling you, you can do whatever you want, but this is what I would have done if I was doing it all over again and spent the money in the right order to get the proper horsepower back for my setup. The more horsepower you make, the higher your maintenance needs to be. You need to be maintaining these cars frequently. Obviously, it's something you guys know if you have a high horsepower car. But I'm just telling you again, this is how I would do it. Now, I know all y'all can fight amongst yourself in the comments about how you would do it, but this is just my opinion. I'm open to any advice, anything you guys have to say better. If you got anything cool, tell me about it in the comments, whatever. Send it to me on Instagram. But this is all I've got for now. Headlights look killer, by the way. I just want to get a good shot of them. But hopefully we're going to be making some content with this soon. Going to be hooking this up to something. But that's all I got for now, guys. So until the next one, hope you have a good one. Peace out. See you later.